notice that the prefix EX can be pronounced in two different ways. In some words, it's pronounced eggs, and in other words, it's pronounced X. So this is an activity I like to do with my students to kind of bring their attention to it. And then they also learn that when they're spelling, and if they hear eggs or X at the beginning of a word, it's going to be spelled EX every time. So this can be a decoding activity, and all the while they're kind of learning something new. So I'm going to start by holding up a word, and I'm going to give my students time to decode it on their own. And I'm going to point out, because at this point, even though we've gone through the process of syllable division, so they know find your vowels, yada yada, I've also taught them that if you see a common prefix like X, and by this point they've seen this and they know that that is the first syllable, so we divide there. There's one vowel left, so we are donezo. We don't need to keep dividing this word, so we can go ahead and decode each syllable. So how most students would decode it would be with this sound. They'd say extend, extend. So the word is extend, and I would say it just clearly and normally, and then I'd ask, okay, which sound do you hear? Do you hear eggs or X? And extend. And they'd say X, so we'd put it there. So now I'm going to do this one, go through the same process. I know I need to divide the word here because that's that common prefix. That's also a syllable. Let's go ahead and decode that. Now, I always find that because they're used to this X representing the X sound, they're going to probably pronounce it like X it, X it. And then I'm going to kind of say, well, how do we pronounce that word exit? Do we say it that way? Or if you're walking out of a place, you're looking for the exit. So we actually pronounce this word like exit instead of exit, exit. We say exit. So let's go through all of these. We have exact. Do you hear eggs or X in exact? I hear eggs. I'm gonna just, for the sake of time for this video, as I'm dividing them, I want you to look at what you think the reason is. Like, what do these all have in common? What do these all have in common? So what these all have in common is that there is a vowel after the X. So anytime there's a vowel after the X, we end up pronouncing EX like eggs. And there's like an explanation, but I'm not a linguist, so I'm not gonna attempt it. And then anytime there is a consonant after the X, that's when we pronounce it X. It has to do more with, I think it's easier to show kids, look, it's vowels here and consonants here. I think the actual reason is that it's like if it's a voice sound after the X or an unvoiced sound, but I think it's just fun to look for patterns in words. And I do not expect my students to memorize this, like as a rule. I'm not gonna be asking them like, oh, when do we say eggs again? Oh, when there's a vowel. I don't need them to memorize that, but I do want to bring their attention to these patterns, and just so that they can see that, oh, there's like a logical reason. We have eggs, we have X, English isn't totally crazy. So after doing this activity, we're going to reread all the words again, just for that repetition, and then we're going to work on spelling the words. And I'm going to remind my students, so if we do the word exam, I hear eggs, exam, but I know we're not going to spell it like eggs. We're going to spell it EX. So I hope this was a helpful video. Hopefully this is an activity